The night was cold and rain tapped against the windows like tiny fingers. Inside the small house, Daniel sat with a blanket around his shoulders, tired after a long day at work. He had no plan for surprises, no plan for visitors. But sometimes fate never asks before it knocks. It was close to midnight when the knock came. It was not loud, but it was steady. 3 soft taps that carried through the silence of the storm. Daniel frowned, wondering who would come at this hour. He walked to the door, his hand resting on the knob for a long moment. Listening, then he pulled it open. There, in the rain, stood a figure, a girl but not human. Her skin had a faint silver hue, glowing slightly under the streetlight. Her eyes were large, bright, almost too bright for the darkness, and her clothes were torn, wet, and covered in mud. She hugged herself with shivering arms, looking up at him with a mix of fear and desperation. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling, "just a little shelter." Daniel's first thought was that she was homeless. He had seen many like her around the city. Aliens who had fled their planets, aliens with no job, no family, no place to go. Most humans ignored them, some even feared them. But something about this one was different. Her voice carried more than just hunger or cold. It carried a secret, though Daniel did not know it yet. "You need a place to stay?" Daniel asked carefully. She nodded quickly, almost too quickly, as if afraid he would shut the door on her face. Daniel sighed, rubbed his forehead, and stepped aside. "Come in. You'll catch your death out there." The girl hesitated for a moment, then slipped inside. Water dripped from her torn clothes onto the wooden floor. She looked around the small house as if stepping into another world. Daniel noticed her wide eyes scanning the furniture, the photos on the wall, even the carpet beneath her feet. She touched the edge of the couch softly, as if she had never seen such things before. "What's your name?" Daniel asked, closing the door. She shook her head slowly. I can't say." Her answer only deepened the mystery, but Daniel decided not to press. Instead, he pointed toward the fireplace. "Sit there. Warm yourself." She moved closer to the fire. Holding her hands near the flames for a long time, she said nothing, only breathing fast, eyes fixed on the crackling wood. Daniel poured her a cup of hot tea, placed it near her, and finally spoke again. "Look, I don't usually let strangers in, but you look like you haven't eaten in days." He opened the kitchen cabinet, took out some bread and soup and placed it on the table. Her eyes glistened with tears as she stepped forward, whispering, "Thank you." As she ate, Daniel leaned back, studying her carefully. Every move she made was cautious, almost too careful, like someone used to being punished for mistakes. She ate quickly but never wasted a crumb. When she finished, she looked at him again, unsure, as if waiting for him to say something else. Daniel cleared his throat. "Look, I don't have much, but I could pay you a little to clean the house tomorrow," he said. Her face lit up with a fragile smile. "Work? You'd let me work?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, just cleaning. You'll get food and a few credits, too." Her smile stayed, but her eyes still held that hidden weight. She agreed quickly. "Yes, I'll do it. I'll do anything." For a while, the house grew quiet again. Only the sound of rain outside. Daniel returned to his chair, watching her carefully as she folded the blanket he gave her and placed it neatly on the couch before sitting. Most homeless aliens would have wrapped themselves in it and never let go, but she handled it with unusual respect. Something about her still bothered Daniel. Why would she refuse to share her name? Why had her hands trembled not only from the cold but from fear? And why did she keep glancing at the windows as if expecting someone or something outside? The storm grew louder, thunder shaking the glass panes. Daniel tried to close his eyes for a moment, but a sound made them snap open. The alien girl was whispering. Her voice was so soft he could barely hear, but the words carried through the dark room. "Don't find me. Please don't find me." Daniel's chest tightened. Who was looking for her? What kind of danger had he just invited into his home? She curled up on the couch, finally drifting into uneasy sleep. Daniel sat awake, staring at her fragile figure in the dim firelight. Something told him that tonight was only the beginning. That girl had brought more than just her hunger and cold into his house. She had brought a storm far greater than the one outside. And before the night was over, Daniel would learn just how close that storm already was. Morning light crept slowly into the small house. Rain had stopped, but the streets outside were still wet. Shining like silver under the pale sun, Daniel woke up late, rubbing his eyes, and for a moment he almost forgot about the visitor he had let in last night. Then he turned and saw her. The alien girl was already awake, standing quietly in the living room. She had wrapped herself in the same blanket but folded it neatly as soon as she saw him move. Her large eyes watched him with that same mix of caution and gratitude. "You don't have to stand like that," Daniel said, yawning. "Did you sleep at all?" She shook her head slightly. I rested enough, it didn't sound true. But Daniel didn't push. He went to the kitchen, made coffee for himself, and when he turned back, he froze. The girl had picked up a broom and was already sweeping the floor. Her movements were strange, not clumsy, not weak, but precise. Every sweep of the broom was careful. Every corner reached as if she had studied the house layout in one glance. "I was going to ask you to start after breakfast," Daniel said, half amused. She gave a small smile. "I want to start now, if that is fine." Daniel nodded. "Fine, but eat first. I'll cook something quick." He made eggs and toast, and she ate silently, her eyes lowering each time she caught him staring. Then, without waiting for orders, she began cleaning again. Not just sweeping, dusting, arranging books, polishing the wooden table. She even lifted heavy furniture slightly to clean beneath, something Daniel himself never bothered with at first. Daniel thought she was just eager to keep her place. But as he watched, he noticed something odd. When she wiped the broken vase from last night, a faint shimmer passed through her fingers. The crack in the ceramic seemed to fade. Like a scar healing before his eyes, he blinked, leaned closer. But by then the vase looked whole again. He rubbed his eyes, wondering if he had imagined it. "You've done this kind of work before?" Daniel asked casually. She paused, then shook her head quickly. "No, I learned fast." Her voice trembled slightly, as though she feared she had revealed too much. Daniel studied her carefully. She looked too thin, too fragile, yet there was something powerful hidden behind her small frame, like a bird with clipped wings, still alive, still capable of flight. If only given the chance, the day moved slowly. Daniel went outside for a short time to buy groceries, leaving her alone in the house when he returned. The house almost didn't look like his anymore. The cluttered shelves were neat, the dusty corners shining, the air itself felt fresher. It was as if she had poured more than work into the cleaning. Something of herself, something strange, something unexplainable. "You did all this in an hour?" Daniel asked in surprise. She nodded shyly. "Yes, I like to help." He wanted to believe her, but unease still lingered in his chest. After lunch, Daniel decided to test her a little. He handed her a stack of old books with torn pages. "Can you clean these too?" "Just dust them." She took them carefully, her hands trembling slightly as if she hated touching damaged things. Daniel pretended to busy himself in the kitchen, but watched her from the corner of his eye. As her fingers brushed the cracked spine of one book, a faint glow appeared again. The torn edges seemed to seal, the cover smoothing out as though years of wear had vanished. Her eyes widened in panic when she realized what she had done. She quickly closed the book and set it down, glancing at Daniel, but Daniel had already seen it. He didn't say anything, not yet by evening. The house was spotless. The girl sat on the couch quietly, folding her hands in her lap. Daniel brought her a small pouch of credits and some food wrapped neatly in a cloth. "This is for today's work," he said. She looked at the pouch but did not reach for it. Instead, her eyes filled with tears. "Why are you helping me?" Daniel frowned. "Because you needed it, that's all." Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Most don't help. Most send us away. Or sell us." Daniel froze at those words. Sell? Did she mean slavery? Before he could ask, she shook her head quickly, almost afraid of her own words. "Thank you," she whispered again. I'll leave after tonight." Daniel didn't like the sound of that. Something about her was pulling him deeper, even though he had promised himself not to get involved in alien troubles. But the image of the vase and the book repairing themselves would not leave his mind. And the way she kept glancing at the windows like a hunted animal made him uneasy that night as he tried to rest. Daniel found sleep hard to catch. He kept thinking of her strange abilities, her fear of speaking her name, and her quiet whispers from last night. "Don't find me, please don't find me." He didn't know who they were, but he felt sure of one thing now. If someone was searching for her, they wouldn't stop until she was found, and somehow, he was already standing between her and that danger. What Daniel didn't realize was that danger was already moving closer. On the wet street outside, a shadowy figure paused under the flickering streetlight. It raised a small device that glowed red, scanning the houses. When the scanner blinked once, twice, then glowed brighter in Daniel's direction, the figure smiled. Inside, Daniel lay awake, unaware. The girl curled tightly on the couch again, clutching the blanket like it was her last shield. And outside, the hunters finally had a signal. The house was silent, but Daniel could not sleep. He turned again and again on his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint ticking of the old clock. Something about the alien girl's presence filled the room with invisible weight. He couldn't shake the image of her whispering in the night, "Don't find me. Please don't find me." Finally, close to midnight, he gave up trying to rest. He stood, walked softly through the hallway, and peeked into the living room. The fire had gone cold, but the girl was still there, curled up on the couch under the blanket. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight coming through the window. She looked peaceful, almost childlike, yet her hands clenched the blanket tightly as if she was ready to run. Daniel turned away, ready to leave her be. But then, her lips moved, whispering again, though her eyes stayed shut. He leaned closer, straining to hear. "They'll come for me. Can't go back. They'll kill me. Please don't." The words chilled him. She wasn't just homeless, she wasn't just poor, she was hiding. From who, from what? Daniel's gut told him he was in deeper trouble than he had imagined. He rubbed his face, stepped back quietly, and returned to his room. But before he could close the door, a faint noise reached his ears, not from inside, but from outside the house, a crunch, like footsteps on wet gravel, then another, closer, slower, deliberate. Daniel's heart beat faster. He grabbed the old baseball bat near his door and moved to the window. Pulling the curtain only a little, he looked out into the street. At first he saw nothing, just wet pavement, the reflection of a broken street lamp, the fog rolling low across the ground. But then he noticed it, a shadow, tall and thin. Moving between the trees across the street, it stopped, then raised something that glowed faint red, the same red light he had seen faintly earlier when coming back with groceries. Now it was brighter, scanning slowly from house to house. Daniel's chest tightened. The device lingered when it pointed toward his house. For a moment, the glow intensified and the shadow lowered the scanner. Daniel swore he saw the faint outline of a smile beneath the hood. He let the curtain fall quickly, his mind raced. They're looking for her. They've already found this street. He turned back to the living room. The girl was awake now, sitting upright on the couch, her big eyes filled with terror. She must have felt it too. Her voice shook as she asked, "You saw them, didn't you?" Daniel froze. "Who are they?" She hugged the blanket tighter, refusing to answer. Her silence was worse than words. Finally, she whispered, "If they know I'm here, you're in danger too." Daniel felt his throat dry. He was just an ordinary man, just someone trying to survive his own life. He wasn't ready to be pulled into alien politics or strange hunts. But now it was too late. He had opened the door to her. And by doing so, he had opened the door to her enemies too. The girl moved suddenly, stepping closer, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Promise me you won't send me out." "Not yet," she begged. Daniel wanted to say no, wanted to say she had to leave, but the fear in her voice cut through him. It wasn't just fear for herself. She feared for him too. Thunder rumbled in the distance again. The shadow outside moved further down the street. But Daniel knew it wouldn't be long before they returned. He tightened his grip on the bat, breathing slowly. "All right," he said finally, "you can stay. But you're going to tell me what's going on." She lowered her head, trembling. "I'll tell you," she whispered, "but not now. Not tonight." Then she looked up, her glowing eyes sharp, filled with a strange strength. "They will come closer, soon, and when they do, you'll see why I can't go back." Daniel wanted answers, but the urgency in her voice silenced him. He sat in the chair across from her, both of them staring at the door. Minutes stretched into an hour, the street outside silent once more, but the feeling of being watched never faded. At some point, her exhaustion dragged her back into uneasy sleep. Daniel stayed awake, listening, waiting, and when he finally closed his eyes for a moment, he dreamed of shadows creeping through his house, of red lights crawling across his walls, and of the girl's whisper repeating again and again, "Don't find me. Don't find me. Don't find me." When dawn finally came, Daniel's eyes opened to pale morning light, but he knew one thing for certain. The hunters had not given up. They were coming back, and next time, they would not be searching the street. Next time, they would be knocking at his door. The day passed slower than usual. Daniel tried to distract himself with work calls and small tasks. but his mind stayed restless. The girl moved quietly around the house, cleaning, folding clothes, making the place look newer than it had in years. But every time her eyes drifted toward the window, Daniel noticed she was afraid, always waiting, always listening for the sound of boots outside. When evening fell, Daniel cooked a simple dinner. She ate silently, thanking him with soft nods. He wanted to ask her again who she was, why she was hunted, what power she carried in her hands, but he knew pressing her too hard would only push her away. Later, when the house went dark, Daniel returned to his room. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, but sleep never came easily anymore. Every sound outside felt like a threat, every flicker of light like a warning. At some point in the night, Daniel woke suddenly. The air felt colder, heavier. Like a storm building in silence, he sat up, listening. The living room was too quiet. Too still, he stood walking barefoot down the hallway. As he reached the corner, his steps slowed. The couch was empty. The blanket lay folded neatly, untouched. His chest tightened. Where is she? Daniel's heart raced as he moved toward his bedroom again. He pushed open the door slowly, and then he froze. There she was. The alien girl was in his bed, curled on the far side, her knees pulled to her chest, her silver skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her face was wet with tears, though her eyes were closed in uneasy sleep. She clung to the pillow as if it were her last comfort. Daniel stood still, torn between anger, pity, and fear. Why had she left the couch? Why here in his bed? He wanted to shout, to wake her and demand answers. But as he stepped closer, he saw how her body trembled even in sleep. She wasn't here because she wanted to intrude. She was here because she was scared, terrified. Her lips moved again, whispering in her sleep. They'll take me. They'll chain me again. No, please, no. Daniel's fists clenched. Chain? Again? The word sent a chill down his spine. This wasn't just about homelessness, this was slavery. Someone somewhere had owned her, and they wanted her back. Before he could think more, a loud knock shook the front door. Not soft, not polite. It was harsh, powerful, like a fist demanding entry. Daniel spun. His heart slamming against his ribs, the girl jolted awake instantly. Her glowing eyes wide with panic, she grabbed Daniel's arm, her voice breaking. Don't open it. Please don't open it. The knock came again, harder this time. A deep voice called through the door, muffled but clear. We know she's inside. Give her to us, human, and no harm will come to you. Daniel froze. His worst fear had arrived. They weren't just searching the street anymore. They were at his door. The girl's grip on his arm tightened. Trembling, her eyes pleaded with him, desperate. If you open that door, I'll be gone forever, she whispered. And they'll kill you after. Daniel's mind raced. He was just an ordinary man with an ordinary life. He didn't owe her anything, not really, if he handed her over. Maybe they would keep their word. Maybe they would leave him alone. But as he looked into her terrified eyes, he knew they wouldn't. People who came with fists and chains didn't keep promises. The knock turned into pounding, shaking the frame of the door. The voice grew harsher. Last chance, human. Surrender her or we come in. Daniel grabbed the baseball bat from beside his bed. His palms were sweaty, his heart wild, but his voice came out steady. You're not taking her, he muttered. Mostly to himself. The girl's eyes widened at his words, a faint spark of hope breaking through her fear. For a moment, silence returned. Then, the lock rattled violently, metal bending under pressure. The door shook as if something heavy was slamming against it again and again. Dust fell from the ceiling, the windows trembled. The girl pressed herself against Daniel, whispering with trembling lips, they won't stop. They'll break through, unless we fight. Her words hung in the air, Daniel's stomach twisted. Fight? He was just one man, but when the doorframe cracked under another blow, he knew there was no turning back tonight. He had to decide whether he was just a man, or the shield standing between her and the chains waiting outside. The pounding on the door grew louder. Each slam made the wooden frame shake as if the house itself was under attack. Daniel gripped the baseball bat tighter. His knuckles white, his mind screamed at him to run. To throw the girl outside and save himself, but his heart refused. The alien girl stood close behind him, her breath shaking. Her glowing eyes flicked toward the door. Then to Daniel, she whispered, They won't leave until they have me. You must not let them in. Daniel swallowed hard. I'm not planning to. The lock snapped. The door burst open with a crash, splinters flying across the floor. 3 figures stepped inside, tall, armored, their faces hidden under metallic masks that glowed faint red. Each carried a weapon that hummed low, dangerous hunters. Their leader's voice echoed through the mask, cold and sharp. "Step aside, human. Hand her over and you live." Daniel's chest pounded, but he stood his ground. "She's not going anywhere," he said. Though fear almost cracked his voice, the leader tilted his head as if surprised by his defiance. "You don't understand," the hunter said. "She is not yours. She belongs to us." The girl's body trembled violently, her hands clenching into fists. "She doesn't belong to anyone," Daniel snapped. Raising the bat, the hunters laughed, an eerie, mechanical laugh that made the air colder. One stepped forward, weapon glowing brighter. Daniel swung the bat with all his strength. It cracked against the hunter's arm, sparks flying. The hunter staggered back, but didn't fall. Instead, the weapon lashed out, slashing across Daniel's shoulder. He cried out, falling to one knee, pain searing through him. The girl screamed, rushing forward. She dropped beside Daniel, pressing her glowing hands to his wound. In seconds, the pain dulled. The bleeding slowed, the skin pulling together. Daniel gasped, staring at her. "You healed me?" She shook her head quickly, whispering, "Later. Fight now." The hunters saw it too. One hissed, "She used it." She revealed her gift. The leader's voice sharpened. "Capture her alive. Kill the human if he resists." The girl stood, her silver skin glowing brighter now. "No," she shouted, her voice strong for the first time. She raised her hands and a pulse of light burst from her palms. The hunters staggered back as the energy pushed them against the walls. Furniture cracked, the windows rattled. The very air hummed with power. Daniel stared in shock. This fragile, frightened girl had just unleashed something fierce. Something that was not meant for housework or hiding. She was dangerous, dangerous to them. And maybe dangerous to him too, but at that moment, she was the only thing keeping him alive. The leader forced himself forward, slamming his weapon into the floor. The energy pulse shattered. The girl fell back, gasping. Her strength fading, Daniel rushed to her side, lifting the bat again. Though his arms shook, the hunters closed in. Their glowing eyes locked on her, but then blue lights flashed outside the house. Sharp and fast, another group had arrived. Different symbols on their armor. A voice boomed from the street. "Step away from the human. She is under protection." The hunters froze for a moment, then snarled behind their masks. The leader spat. "This isn't over." He waved his hand, and in a blink they disappeared into the night, vanishing into the fog as if they were never there. Silence filled the broken house. Daniel dropped the bat, his body shaking, his shoulder aching despite her healing. The girl collapsed against him, whispering, "You should have let me go. They won't stop now." Daniel held her tighter, his voice rough. "Then let them come again. We'll face them." She looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No one ever says that. No one ever stands against them." Outside, the blue-armored figures did not enter, but stood watch in the shadows. Who they were, Daniel didn't know. But he understood one thing. The girl was not just a homeless wanderer. She was at the center of a war that had just stepped through his front door. And somehow, by opening that door to her last night, he had chosen his side. The house was quiet again, but it was not peace. Shattered wood from the broken door lay scattered on the floor. Glass from the window crunched under Daniel's boots as he walked. The girl sat slumped against the wall, breathing hard, her silver skin dimmer now. Her glowing hands no longer sparked with light. Her strength drained. Daniel crouched beside her, touching her shoulder gently. "You saved me," he whispered. She shook her head, her eyes heavy with fear. "No, I doomed you," Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" She looked at him then, truly looked. Her eyes filled with pain she had carried for far too long. "You saw what I can do," she said softly. "Now you understand why they want me." Daniel sat back, gripping his knees. "I don't understand anything," he admitted. "You healed me, you pushed them back with light. And they called you a
gift? What are you?"
She closed her eyes for a moment before speaking. "My people call me Yara," she whispered finally, revealing her name for the first time. Her voice trembled, as if saying it out loud broke a rule that had been beaten into her. "I was born different. My touch heals, my energy restores, my light destroys chains." Daniel blinked, stunned. "That doesn't sound like something to be hunted for. That sounds like something to protect." Her laugh was hollow, bitter. To protect? No, to own. To control. To sell. Her words struck Daniel like a blow. He remembered her whispers in the night, the word chains, the hunters demanding her return. They kept you. As a slave? He asked quietly. She nodded slowly. My power is rare. Only one is born every 100 years in my clan. They use us to heal their warriors, to rebuild what they break, to keep their army strong. We are not people to them. We are tools. Daniel's jaw tightened, anger boiling in his chest. They had no right, he muttered. But Yara shook her head sadly. Rights don't matter to hunters. Power matters, and I am power. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of the rain dripping from the broken roof. Daniel rubbed his face, trying to breathe past the shock. So why come here? Why Earth? Her hands trembled as she pulled the blanket closer. Because humans don't know me, she whispered. Because maybe, here, I could just be free, even if for a little while. Tears slid down her cheeks, her voice cracking. But they found me. They always find me. Daniel looked at her, his chest tightening. She was just a girl, frightened, hunted, broken. And yet, when the hunters came, she stood and fought. She wasn't only a victim. She was fire hiding in ashes. He reached for her hand, and though she flinched at first, she didn't pull away. Listen, Daniel said firmly. You're not going back. Not while I'm here. Her eyes widened, disbelief flashing across her face. You would die for me, she whispered. Daniel's voice was rough but steady. No, I'd fight for you. And that's different. Yara stared at him for a long moment, as if weighing his soul. Then she gave a faint, trembling smile. No one has ever said that to me before. The night passed heavy and slow, outside. Daniel noticed the blue-armored figures still keeping their silent watch. Shadows against the fog. He didn't know if they were allies or enemies waiting their turn. But for now, they weren't breaking down his door. And that was enough. When dawn touched the sky, Daniel found Yara asleep at last. Her breathing steady. Her fear eased just a little. He stepped outside cautiously, bat still in his hand. The street was empty. No hunters, no watchers, only silence. But deep inside, he knew this wasn't over. The hunters would return, stronger, angrier, more prepared. He looked back at the house, at the girl sleeping inside. She had brought danger into his life, yes, but also something else. A reason to stand, a reason to fight for once in years. Daniel didn't feel like a man drifting through meaningless days. He felt alive, awake, needed. And though the enemy was stronger, though the fight ahead could kill him, he had already made his choice. Inside, Yara stirred in her sleep, whispering softly, Don't let them take me. Please. Daniel clenched his jaw, his grip tightening on the bat. He whispered back, even though she couldn't hear. They'll have to kill me first. The morning came heavy with silence. Fog rolled across the empty street. The broken door hung crooked on its hinges, and Daniel sat at the table with tired eyes. Yara, the alien girl, sat across from him, sipping tea slowly. Her hands still trembling, neither spoke much. But both knew the same truth. The hunters would come back. They don't give up, Yara whispered finally, her voice low. They'll keep coming until I'm in chains again. Until I'm gone. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we'll make sure they don't take you. Yara looked at him with wide, glowing eyes as if trying to measure his resolve. You're just human, she said softly. They are trained, armed, ruthless. You'll die if you fight them. Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. Then I'll die standing, not watching them drag you away. Her lips parted, a mix of shock and sorrow crossing her face. No one had ever spoken like that for her before, not even her own people by afternoon. The watchers in blue armor outside had vanished. The silence felt wrong, like the pause before a storm. Daniel began preparing, locking windows, moving furniture to block the broken door, searching for anything that could be used as a weapon. The baseball bat leaned against the wall, but he also filled bottles with oil and rags. Simple tricks he had seen in old war movies. Yara watched him, her expression torn between fear and admiration. You don't have to do this, she whispered. Daniel gave her a tired smile. Yes, I do. Because the moment I opened that door to you, it stopped being your fight alone. The sun dipped behind the clouds and night fell fast. That was when the humming started, low at first, like the sound of engines hidden in the fog, then louder, closer, vibrating through the walls of the house. Yara's eyes widened, glowing in fear. They're here. Daniel grabbed the bat and stood in front of her. No more running, he said firmly. Tonight, we make a stand. The door exploded inward. Not with fists this time, but with a blast of searing light. Hunters stormed inside, 5 of them armored, weapons humming, red eyes glowing behind their masks. The leader stepped forward, his voice sharp as steel. Enough games. Hand her over, human, and we might spare you. Daniel's grip tightened. She doesn't belong to you, he said. His voice shaking but strong, the leader hissed. Then you die with her. The hunters rushed forward. Weapons raised. Daniel swung the bat, striking one across the helmet. Sparks flying. Another raised his weapon. But Yara shouted, her hands glowing bright. She unleashed a wave of light that slammed into the walls, rattling the house, throwing 2 hunters back through the broken door. But the effort drained her. She staggered. Nearly falling, Daniel caught her, holding her steady. Stay with me, he shouted, her voice trembled. I can't hold them off. Not for long. The leader advanced, weapon glowing. You are ours, Yara, he growled. Daniel stepped between them, rage burning in his chest. She's not yours. She's free. He swung the bat again, but this time the leader caught it. Snapping it in half like a twig, Daniel stumbled back, breathless. The leader raised his weapon for the killing blow. But Yara screamed, throwing herself forward. Her entire body blazing with silver light, the house filled with energy. Blinding, powerful. The hunters staggered, their armor cracking under the force. Their weapons shattering, the leader roared, trying to resist, but the light pierced through his mask. He fell to his knees, screaming as his body dissolved into ash. One by one, the hunters collapsed, their armor smoking, their forms broken, until silence fell again. The house was wrecked, walls cracked, furniture shattered, but the hunters were gone. Yara collapsed into Daniel's arms, her glowing skin dimming. Tears ran down her face, but this time they were not of fear. They're gone, she whispered weakly. For now, they're gone. Daniel held her close, his heart pounding. You did it, he said softly. You're safe. She shook her head faintly. Not safe. Never safe. They'll send more. They'll never stop hunting me. Daniel looked into her glowing eyes, his voice fierce. Then let them come. We'll fight them together. You're not alone anymore. Yara stared at him, her trembling lips curving into the faintest smile. For the first time, I believe that, she whispered. Outside, the fog rolled across the empty street, carrying silence with it inside the broken house. Daniel and Yara sat together, 2 souls from different worlds bound by a single choice. One act of kindness had changed everything, and though the war was far from over, one thing was certain. She no longer whispered, "Don't find me," because now she had someone who would stand beside her. No matter who came through the door,